Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And today I want to keep talking about Busan. I gotta say, this is one of the prettiest dang cities I've ever seen. Okay, so I mentioned how incredibly weirdly clean all of the buildings are. And they are, and that's strange because there's salt spray from the ocean, and it's a humid place. It's right next to the coastline, but everything is just so clean. The streets are clean, the buildings are clean, the statues are clean, the sidewalks are clean, the walls and gym equipment are clean. It's just a very clean city, which maybe I'll get to today because I found out why, according to a cop, but that'll come up later. Oh, you know what I should talk about? Expedition 33. I finally started playing that and had a ton of fun, but it reminded me so much of another game, and it was very strongly a feeling of deja vu, and I could not figure out why exactly or what it was about Expedition 33 that reminded me of this other game, but in my head I was certain I had played an identical game almost to it, at least fundamentally. Like a lot of the underlying themes of the games are the same. Like a weird amount. And I was getting this feeling the whole time I was playing Expedition 33 for way too long and burning out my eyes because I was having a fun time. I really like being able to defend and push B at the right time so you can defend and not get hit as bad or whatever, or dodge the attacks. Great mechanic. Anyway, almost I don't know, maybe not halfway through the game, but 3/4 of the way through, it hit me. Alice. American McGee's Alice. I don't want to spoil anything, but if you liked Expedition 33 and you can handle graphics far more rudimentary, you'll probably love Alice. It's quite similar. And Alice Madness Returns, I also love. I love those games. I know American McGee is still trying to make the third game, and I'm all for it. Where are they? They've been making it for a decade and a half now, and there is a development team working on it, but they just don't have corporate funding to make it within a few years like other games. But they were working on it forever. So let me check. Well, it looks about 3 years ago, EA unequivocally told American McGee that despite all of the pre-pro that they'd done on the game and all the design and all the models, wow, they built so much. EA was not going to fund the game, was not interested, and if he kept working on it, he'd be infringing on their intellectual property rights, which could open American McGee and his business up to legal action. So, no surprise, EA is still terrible. I just watched the farewell video he made for everyone explaining that. Oh, what a bummer. That game would be so good. He suggested taking the game design Bible that they have produced and just using all of the elements and asking AI to make the game just make the game from that design Bible, because everything's in it, the levels and everything, weapons and character models and everything. I'd be interested in doing that. I love that world. I love both the first and second games of that. And they're very similar to Expedition 33. If you like that game at all, I don't know, you might be interested. I'd be curious if you end up playing Alice or Alice Madness Returns because of this episode. Let me know. Man, I could play those games again. I played the first one so many times. I think I played the second one 2 or 3 times. I like Alice in Wonderland anyway. Those books in that world are fascinating to me. But it's a very grimy, bloody, violent game working through emotions. It's very unique. That is a very unique world that American McGee built, twisted around the cinder block foundation of Alice fantasy. It's a lot like Resident Evil Alice in Wonderland. So if that sounds good to you, I highly recommend American McGee's Alice and Alice Madness Returns. Anyway, I had fun playing Expedition 33. I definitely stayed up too late working on it, but I really was not doing anything except just eating. Actually, I didn't even eat a ton of food. I was just eating so much Hai Tai because I found a couple places that did have nori, and that's like my favorite snack. So I was having beers and nori and then playing Expedition 33 for a week straight. And it was a really fun time. And I beat the game. And yeah, probably another game I'd recommend. But I probably like the Alice games even more. Except you'll be hard-pressed if you're used to modern graphics because American McGee, I don't know, looks like 128-bit graphics or something. It's like twice as good as Super Mario 64. That can't be true. It's like PS2 level graphics, I guess. Well, the first one's probably PS1. It came out in like 2001. I don't know. I didn't have any consoles except the N64, so I don't know what the dates were. But Expedition 33 was a fun thing and reminded me a lot of American McGee's Alice games. And if you play them, you'll see why. I charged my interview mic. I am ready to interview my friends in Beijing. I have several close friends still in Beijing, and I've charged the mic. It'll be simple to pull it out, and I can just ask them a few questions and at least get something in one of these episodes because I want to start. I think I'm ready. I'm ready to start interviewing people. I got my first 130 episodes or whatever out, and now I kind of want some outside input, so it's not just a perspective hole I'm screaming into with my own views, because it's that I love talking to people while I'm traveling. I like talking to people in general, and it's always surprising to talk to people when you have real conversations with someone, and that's much easier for me to do while I'm traveling. Like if I'm in the US, the person talking to me usually just assumes I have some US American basis, except I guess, now with politics, they're probably that assumed monocultural perspective isn't quite as strong as it was 10 years ago even. But traveling, nobody knows anything about, so you get straight to the heart of a bunch of matters very quickly in conversations. And I'm always interested to hear what people think about just the world, how they see the world, because I, obviously as a traveler, understand and see it so differently than so many other people. And my friends in Beijing are in Beijing. I got to go to Changsha because I have friends in Changsha. I got friends around. I got to travel to more cities next time. But this time I'm just going to go to Beijing, see my Beijing friends, and hopefully get a couple interviews on mic. I walked so much in Busan going around because I was eating so much Hai Tai, which are nori, which makes you bloated, which makes me bloated, and drinking beer with it, which makes me way more bloated. So I spent 3 to 5 hours every day, at least, even while I was playing Expedition 33. I'd make sure to walk at least 3 hours a day because I'd go to the all-you-can-eat buffet, and then I went home and had a whole bunch of nori and beer, and I don't think I got any shochu, actually, while I was in Busan. But there's so many more seltzers now everywhere than there were a decade ago, and I prefer those to beer because they taste good, because it's just tasty. It's not like sour yeast byproduct. Tasty fruit juice that gets me a bit tipsy, and I can eat my nori, play a video game. It was a good day. And then I just walk around in Busan, and it's such a nice, at least the district I'm in, Haeundae, is such a nice district to walk around in. There's so many trees. No matter where I am, even in the middle of the district or the more touristy parts, there's always some green pathway, giant rivers, beautiful bridges. There's exercise gyms, green grass, and like native plants, not just boring grass, like monocultured grass and all kinds of different trees. It is a beautiful city. I really like Busan. Oh, and exercise parks. I mentioned that. I love exercise parks. I love being outside and just happening upon a pull-up bar and being able to do my exercises for the day. I also am still doing some kind of arms exercises, some kind of abs exercises, and then I'm walking and I like jumping up on walls and stuff. So I assume my legs are getting enough exercise as well. I just do basic calisthenics every day, some amount of calisthenics. And it's a lot easier when, if I'm walking around a city, there happen to be adult jungle gyms, exercise parks all around the city, just waiting for someone to strengthen their body. Calisthenics. Is that the right word? Strength training? Body weight. Body weight exercises. That's calisthenics, right? Yes, I just checked to make sure that I was using the right word and I wasn't saying something like, I don't know, aerobics. Calisthenics, body weight exercises. How long has it been now? It's been years since I started doing this, where I think I started with like a daily reminder on my phone, do like 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, and as long as I did those, then good. And it really made a difference in my life. I was getting frail because all I did was play video games and walk around every day still, even go running, but I was spending a lot of time. I was retired, so I was just not. I was reading whole books for the whole afternoon, or reading a comic, or playing a video game, or watching movies, and then it would be time for dinner, and then I'd go back and be like, well, I'm still kind of fit, whatever, it's not so bad. And if I need to lose weight, then I would just go running and eat less for a few days. But I didn't feel as strong as I usually did, so I started making myself do some amount of push-ups and sit-ups every day. And now that's just arms, abs, and legs daily. Just do something. And that, I don't know, it's really been helping me. I feel much better these past few years since I started doing that. When did I start doing that? I don't know, a few years, whatever, who cares? So I really enjoy walking along the coast of Busan, specifically Haeundae. I liked the beach a whole lot. That first night, like I said, the water was super violent and crazy and the waves were crashing. And I was wondering if that's what the waves were always like. But every other day I was there, they were pretty calm. Maybe it was a nighttime thing. Because I walked during the day out all across the entire coast of Haeundae, and it was always pretty calm, to the point that I saw people swimming in the bay. It was still chilly, but it was perfectly comfortable, and it got hot a couple of the days that I was there. So spring was coming, and people were happy to go swimming in the ocean, and it looked pretty nice. Smelled pretty strongly of kelp, but that's not a terrible smell. And I think there was a bunch of buoys out on the ocean. I was wondering if they were some kind of kelp farm or something. I have no idea. But it's just so pretty. There's a really nice ocean, and then right on shore, there's green everything. There are hills sloping up all around, and there are clean freshwater rivers, and so many paths to go on, so many hiking places to go on. And then it's still Busan, it's still the city, so the all-you-can-eat buffet is right there, and crab seafood restaurants are all around, and there's a huge shopping mall that was really nice, and just absolutely beautiful city, and a beautiful district of the city especially. Oh, and I mentioned it was cherry blossom season, so there were cherry blossoms like everywhere for the first 4 or 5 days, and the petals were falling, and there were enormous piles that the wind naturally sculpted into, in corners or around corners, and it just looked so pretty. All the sidewalks looked beautiful because there are cherry trees everywhere. So the cherry blossoms were everywhere. It was a lot of fun walking around Busan all the time. I like walking around Busan. I kind of want to go back. But I don't know any Korean, so I probably will start studying that at some point, which will be difficult. but not actually difficult. Because after you learn a second language, it becomes very apparent that, well, if you learned a second one, then you can learn a third one and then go on. And I like to self-study with languages, and Duolingo offers Korean as well as a bunch of 30 other languages. So I can at least start on that and see how I feel about it. I don't understand their writing system at all, but I didn't understand Chinese or Japanese before I started studying those either. And I like writing systems. Cherry blossoms, the whole city, absolutely beautiful. I'll say it again, I had more seltzer almost every day. I had 1 or 2 cans of lemon seltzer, and then I would get a huge 2-liter bottle or 2 1-liter bottles of seltzer water, just pure sparkling water, and then I'd mix that in. So I only had 2 beers really, but I split those into 6 different beers so that I could keep drinking just a little bit, but it was mostly water. And then I was eating all the nori I could possibly eat, and I loved that stuff. And the mall I mentioned was really nice. That's where I found the first seaweed at a supermarket inside the mall. But the mall's constructed with an open roof half the time. So there are hallways, and the hallways are roofed, but it's open. There's a bunch of open courtyards and spaces, and there's outdoor markets in between the regular shops in the mall. And it's all open air, so it's a very comfortable place to walk. And of course, like everywhere else in Busan, it's completely clean and beautiful, and there's cobblestones in some places, but mostly paved stones, and it's huge. It is enormous. It's like city block sized, this mall. So a few times I just walked around that mall and instead of walking, if I was out during the day and the sun was really bright, I could walk in this open air mall, mostly shielding myself from the sun, but just walking around and looking at all the handcrafted soap stalls and whatever they were selling. And it was large enough that I could spend a couple hours walking around without having to go in the same circuit of the same indoor area of many traditional malls. It was very well constructed and very comfortable to walk around. And there were bathrooms everywhere and free water from filtered water dispensers everywhere in the mall. So yeah, very comfy spot. And there's a supermarket right there. And they still had a bunch of prep-ready meals, but I didn't get any of those because I was eating nori all day, every day. Okay, I talked about the perfect Busan buffet that was I would be happy eating there every day for months probably. I would just go there anytime I wanted food. I mean, $6 for all you can eat, rotating dishes at a buffet. Everyone's nice because they're oh, here comes that foreigner who loves Korean food, and people love it when you love their culture, and food is a huge part of so many cultures that it was a friendly, wonderful cafeteria to go to every day and eat as much as I wanted. And rotating dishes, so some days they'd have this meat that I hadn't had before, and I would just be okay, I guess I'm getting 6 plates of this meat before I go walk around for 3 hours, and because I don't know when I'll have it again, and I don't know if I've had it before. And it might just be a kalbi, a very normal thing, but I certainly haven't had this type of meat in South Korea before. I have had the egg with meat inside it, and it's never tasted very good, and this one was super tasty, even unheated, which I wish that was the only problem. If they just the meat dishes, just heat those 3 dishes that you have, and it would have been perfect. 4.5 stars out of 5. But it's impossible to complain about this place because I loved it, and I went every single day. Oh, it was interesting. My last day in Korea, I don't even know if I was there I think I was there 7 days, but it might have been 6 days. I was there quite briefly. Because my plan was to go on to Mongolia. My friends in Beijing asked me to stop and go hang out with them in Beijing for a couple weeks on my way to Mongolia, since I have to fly through there anyway, and that is a great idea, so I decided to do that. So Korea, it had been so long since I'd been in South Korea, and even though I never liked going to Seoul, except for the Cartoon Museum, which rocks, I always want to give it another chance. There's always something more to discover. So I'm so glad I stopped in Busan for a week, because now South Korea is a very interesting country to me again, which, because I had only been to Seoul, I was judging all of their cities and also just the country on my poor experiences in Seoul. Or really my bored experiences in Seoul. It's not a disgusting city or anything. It's just, it did not hold my interest. But I also went there in the very beginning, and I was only there for 2 days at a time. And I don't know, I bet if I went back to Seoul now, I would like parts of the city. But now I'm very interested, after spending time in Haeundae, going to smaller towns around Korea and just maybe landing in Korea and just walking around, backpacking through Korea like I like to do, because that seems like a fun place to do that. I think they have public baths too. I'm not sure, but there was definitely some public baths listed in Korea. So I got to look into that if I go back, because I love that I have all of Japan to do that. I can backpack across a country and stay clean because they have the public baths everywhere. But if there are 2 countries that do that, if I can also backpack across South Korea and use the public baths to stay clean and laundromats to wash my clothes, that would double my happiness, my backpacking happiness. Okay, so that was mostly, I usually don't drink beer or anything the day before I leave a place, because I hate to be hungover at all, or I just don't like to feel bad at all before I get on a plane. If I feel good, planes are perfectly comfortable, but if I feel a little bit nauseous or just cloudy in my head or anything, I want to make sure I'm doing all the entry procedures right. I just want to feel comfortable, basically. And if I drink a bunch of beer, I know I'm going to be like sweating out alcohol, so I'll be that stinky guy on the plane, which I don't want to be. And I just don't want to feel crappy if I have to wait in a line for customs or something, which that was not a problem at all in Busan. That was 5 minutes and I was right through, and it was the same when I left and got on the plane to Beijing. So let's go over the last day in Korea, because it was very interesting. I decided to go to the buffet again, no surprise. I went there every single day in Busan. I thought maybe you'll get tired of it. Let's see. But after a week and rotating dishes every day, like a third of them were rotating every day, I was just like, no, why would I not go here every day for my main meal? It's perfect. $6, all you can eat, delicious food with all the Korean side dishes I can want, and a different main dish each day. It's perfect. And the people are nice, and there's windows, and it's not loud, it's a quiet cafeteria. It's just great. Just a great place. So I went there again, and then on the way back, I was like, you know what? You're in Korea. Just get your favorite snack, nori. Just get it again. Have some nori the day before you go. It's only a 2-hour flight to Beijing. You'll feel fine. So I grabbed one seltzer and some sparkling water and some nori. And then I asked a guy... Oh, they were out of the lemon seltzer that I'd been taking. I think I took all of it over that week. And he looked and restocked it. And then he was like, hey, so where are you from? And he started talking to me. And he turned out not to be an employee of that store particularly. He supplied all the stores. He drove the truck to supply everywhere. And he looked at the seaweed I had, and he was like, hey, if you like that, I have seaweed that's technically expired, so I have to pick it up from all the stores, and I can just give you free nori. And I was like, what? And I was like, give me 5. No, I wanted to just be like, well, give me everything you have, and I'll just eat it over the next 12 hours. But of course, I'm not a troll, so I didn't ask for everything. But he was like, yeah, man, just like pay for this stuff, put that seaweed back, go outside around, and the truck right next to the store right now, that's my truck, and I'll just give you a bunch of nori. And that's what I did. And I was like, am I living in a dream? And I went out, and the guy, I paid for the beer, and I think I just got the beer, and then that he had just restocked, went outside, saw the truck, and the guy was rooting around in there, and he came out with a 16-pack of nori and gave it to me. And I was like, thank you so much. And we talked a little bit, and I told him I was traveling, and he was like, that's so cool. I'm driving a truck. And I was like, that's cool too. And it seemed like a pretty nice job, especially in Korea. And he seemed very happy. Oh, and he gave me an extra snack too. He gave me a 16-pack of nori, but he also gave me a pack of like fish-flavored crackers that seem very popular in Korea. And they were fine, but it's bread, it's flour snacks. I don't eat a lot of like cookies and crackers and stuff. But that's okay because I had the nori, and I could see he had like hundreds of these 16 packs that he was taking back to corporate, I guess, because the expiration went. And I was like, what are you doing with that food? But that's how production works these days. So that's how I spent the last day in Korea. I went back to my hotel room that was nice, opened the window, let the fresh air go over me, ate a bunch of nori, drank that one seltzer and sparkling water mixed drinks that turned into 4 mixed drinks. And then it was only like 8 p.m., 7 p.m. So I was like, I guess I got to go back because I need more nori if I'm already having my party. And I went back and bought more nori this time and another seltzer and another big thing of sparkling water. And it was a really fun last day in Korea, and I had a great time. Oh, and then I had to get back to the airport the next day, which was not super easy because the instructions were in Korean. There were too many options to register for the bus. Okay, it was easy to get back to the airport from where I was in that the transportation in Busan's amazing, and a whole bunch of it was translated into English. But there were several QR codes to scan, and it said I had to register for the bus before the bus came or they wouldn't let me on. And it said, like, super important, very strictly followed. And then I was trying to register, and it just was not happening. And the poor English translation wasn't helping on any of the websites I was on, and there were several websites to try. But my registration for this airport bus just didn't work. But then the bus arrived, and I just showed him the error message on the phone. And he was like, do you want to pay? He said something in Korean. I was like, I don't know. And I just pulled out 10,000 won or whatever it is. I can't remember. And gave it to him. And he was like, oh, cash, yes. And he said cash. I remember that. He was like, oh, cash, yes. And he just took the cash, and I got on the bus. So you don't need to register for the airport shuttle. And I didn't need to register for it when I came into the city. So I was confused why the sign said that, but it said very strictly, you must register, it's all cashless, you're not allowed to use cash. It said that explicitly. But when he showed up, he asked for cash. When I said I didn't pay for it online, I just gave him cash and got straight to the airport, super easy. Got on that plane, actually, you know what, I got there early, a few hours early, and I was walking around the airport, and it's been like a couple years since I've properly been in Beijing by myself, and I would be traveling around just seeing my friends like I used to do. So I was kind of excited, and I was like going to China, but I'm in the Busan airport, so I'm looking around and I don't really know who's Japanese or Korean or Chinese. And I was like, I wonder where we're all going. Like, which of these people in the waiting area is going to come with me to Beijing and we'll land together. And then I looked over, and there's this girl with, lacquered nails. They're longer, like very tasteful makeup done. She's wearing a fancy little skirt and tights, and she has like fluffy fake fur, a coat and a handbag and boots. And she looks like super fancy, except that one of her manicured nails is stuck up her nose, and she's just like rotating it and trying to scrape out whatever is up that nostril with her finger. And I was like, she's going to China. Like, there's the Chinese, there's the China I know. And if that doesn't ring a bell, I think I mentioned this, but like I'm sure I did. Like my first day in China, or whatever, the first work day in China, I got on the subway and to get to the middle of the city, so where the school was, and I saw this beautiful girl, and I was like, "Holy crap, she is gorgeous!" And I mean, I think that every time I go, literally anywhere. But I was on the subway, and I was like, "Wow, she's so pretty." And then this beautiful girl on the subway right across from me, and it's not an empty subway, there's tons of people, just very casually, without turning her head or anything, same thing, large nails, sticks her finger straight up her nose right in front of me, opens the nostril and just starts excavating her boogers, and like looking at him and wiping her finger and then just going right back in. And in all other ways, you'd be like, wow, I wonder if this girl's a model. But in China, digging your nose is so culturally appropriate that people still, because this happened right before my flight, like 2 weeks ago, that I saw this girl doing it now 15 years later, that beautiful girls who otherwise take a whole bunch of care to the appearance they're giving off, apparently, stick their fingers up their nose and just dig them right in front of you, which is icky. I don't like if anyone's digging their nose in front of me, but it's always, you can tell how much work they put into their appearance, and then they just shatter the entire image by shoving their fingers knuckle deep up their nostrils for not like I'm wiping up, maybe her nose was itchy. No, her finger is knuckle deep in her nostril, and she's excavating what is in there. It's such a crazy thing, but it was so funny because as soon as I was just charging my phone, sitting on the floor and wondering who's going with me to Beijing. And then I saw this girl and I was like, that's China. She's going to Beijing for sure. Because that's not a Korean or Japanese thing. That's not a Southeast, that's not an other Asia thing. You're not going to see that in other countries. That is a specific Chinese behavior, or at least you won't. I'm sure there are a small percentage of people in other countries who don't care about what they look. But the only country that I consistently see people who take so much care of their appearance and have no problem digging their nose or like coughing, spitting, that's China, baby, especially Beijing. So I saw her and I was like, welcome back to Beijing. And I felt fine. I only had a few seltzers. Like I went back, I had like 3 trips of nori and seltzer the night before, but it was one seltzer each time that I'd mixed with a bunch of water. So I felt fine, got to the airport early, excited to go back to Beijing, see some friends I haven't seen in a while, and just speak Chinese again because I can speak Mandarin, and I've traveled to so many countries and I don't speak the language when I land, so it's always nice when I do get back to China because at least I can speak the language. Kind of like going back to the US, like tons of things I don't like, the not fresh food and no healthcare, transportation, all that, but at least I can talk to people and speak comfortably and easily. And China's kind of the same way. My Mandarin is certainly not as good as my native English, but when I land in China, every time I visit, I'm like, cool, at least I can talk to everyone again, and I'll be able to get around very easily. And turns out, very easily. There's so much to talk about in Beijing. Oh, but I didn't finish Korea. Wait, there's like a couple more things in Korea. We'll start with Korean melons. South Korean melons are this yellowish orange thing with rind stripes along the fruit, and they're like, I don't know, orange sized-ish, but they're a little more ovoid. And they tasted like a light bubble gum ice cream candy to me. They were crazy, but I hadn't had them that I could remember, so I was going to get some. And I just grabbed them because I was like, I don't even know what this fruit is. Korean melon, I'll just see. And it was really expensive. It was $8 for a box or something, but I was like, whatever. It was more than I thought I was getting, but there were no smaller boxes, and I had never tried it, so I wanted to try it. And then I rang it up and went outside, and there was a Korean guy, and he saw me holding the Korean melons, and he's like, "Oh, do you like those?" in English. And I hadn't met, there were not a lot of people that spoke English in Busan, but this guy did. And so I was like, "Oh, I don't know. This is my first time." He's like, "Oh, they're great. And they're really only in South Korea. Like, sometimes we export them to other countries, but they're only popular here in South Korea. And in South Korea, we all love them because the taste is so unique and it's very sweet. It's delicious." And I was like, "This is all sounding great. Thank you." I didn't know what I got or how to eat them. And he was like, "Yeah, just open them and eat it. That's all. The white flesh on the inside, that's the good stuff." So I said, "Okay, thanks." And then he asked me about, why are you traveling? How long are you here? What have you seen? And I think at some point I mentioned, like, yeah, part of the reason I love South Korean, like, detective movies and South Korean movies in general. I love the South Korean cinema scene. And he was like, "Oh, I'm a cop. I'm a policeman, actually." And I was like, "Wow, that's cool." And we talked a little bit about that. He was a new cop. He'd been working for a year-ish, something like that. Or maybe it wasn't even a year. I think it was like 6 months or something. He just started work as a cop. Maybe that's why he was still so ebullient and gregarious. And I told him I loved the buffets and all the Korean side dishes and food, and Busan was such a beautiful city. And he was like, "Yeah, that's why I moved here. It's so nice." And I asked him if he had any recommendations for South Korean cop movies. And instead, he gave me 2 recommendations for, like, South Korean family dramas, but not even dramas. It's just like a kids movie is how he described it, but it explains South Korean culture really well. And I wrote down the names of them, but I lost both of them, and they really sounded very boring. He even said, like, the movies are super boring, but you'll understand South Korean culture pretty well. And I was like, I'm not in a lecture course. I'll glean. I like to glean. I like to throw myself into a country, talk to people. I like to watch the movies and eat the food and watch people, how they behave, and slowly learn the language and get the feel for the culture that way. I don't necessarily want a specific perspective from one director in this movie to tell me how South Korea works. And I have watched many South Korean movies, including just family dramas, that I think explain to me fairly well at least some of the basics of family hierarchy and authority and sort of do-it-yourselfness that seems so strong in South Korea. Okay, but this was interesting. This was the first South Korean who could speak such good English. Actually, besides that seaweed guy, he spoke really good English, but I didn't talk to him that long. The guy who gave me the free seaweed and fish crackers. Thanks again, guy. But this cop spoke very good English and was clearly interested in talking to me, wanted to ask all these questions. So before we stopped talking, I asked him, why is this city so clean? Why is Busan so clean? Like, the buildings don't have water stains, the statues are clean, there's no bird crap anywhere, like, there's no trash on the streets. This is a weirdly clean city, and I don't know why. And he told me that it's similar to the fruit I was holding. And there's a Korean saying that I wrote down and then I forgot or deleted because I don't have it now. And it's basically, if it looks good, then it tastes good. Or if it looks good, then it's good. If it looks good on the outside, then it's good on the inside. And he says that this is what he told me, that that's part of the culture for everything. So if the building looks crappy on the outside, then the business inside is no good, or the hotel inside is no good, or whatever inside is no good. So even my dingy little hotel I was at, it looked like the white paint. It was just boring painted white building, but it was clean. Like, the whole outside of the building was clean, which that might be the first shared apartment or private apartment shared facility place I've ever lived in that actually was clean. And their toilet was always clean on the inside, and the showers were always clean, and all the rooms were clean. So it was really interesting to hear that because I hadn't heard that. And I think if I went back to Seoul, I didn't get that. When I went to Seoul so many times, I never got the impression that it was abnormally clean or well maintained. But that was one of the first things I noticed about Busan, that everything was clean and maintained. And there's no reason not to believe him because that's the only explanation I heard for it, and that makes as much sense as anything else because every building I went into was immaculate on the outside and the inside. Actually, the supermarket I went to was kind of stinky, but I assume that's because all the meat and kimchi was all around. But yeah. Actually, the smell was only from the back area. There's one supermarket I went into to get nori, and every time I walked past the room to the back area where they cut up meat, that part was not as clean, but that part was not meant for customers. I mean, it was still clean, but you could just smell that's where they butchered the meat that they butchered, which don't smell like roses if you've never butchered meat. So yeah, I finally got an answer to why Busan was so clean, and it's a pretty satisfying answer, and it makes South Korea sound pretty amazing. And I'm not sure exactly how true that is. If you are from South Korea or have been there and have more insight than I do, I've been there multiple times, but the total amount of time is probably still less than a month, even though I've been there 10 times over the years, probably add up to a month or so. So if you know why Busan is so clean, is it just that the cop is correct that if it looks good on the outside, then it's good on the inside, so they have to maintain a good facade or nobody will believe that whatever is inside the building is any good? That's very interesting. I loved that answer, and I hope that that's correct because then, yeah, I definitely want to go back to other cities in South Korea. It's also interesting because it's very clearly you should judge a book by its cover. Like, that's the message of that saying, but it's a very common saying in Korea, according to this cop I met. You know, one thing I forgot to mention, there was this little shack I never went to. The day before I left, I went there and had a beer there. And I couldn't not because it was constructed entirely out of beer cans and soda cans. So they were like parallel to the ground and connected somehow. I don't even know. And it was just, they made... So there was a 7-Eleven, there was some convenience store. I think it was a CU, actually, convenience store, which is the Korean convenience store. So that's the outside wall of this convenience store is one of the 4 walls of the next structure, but then the other 3 walls were completely made out of beer bottles and beer cans connected and just hanging down. And they seemed pretty sturdy because there was a lot of wind and they didn't blow around or make a lot of noise. But there was a beer can outside eating and drinking area. After you ate at CU or you bought your stuff at CU, you could take it out into this outside eating area. And there was a bar and guitars hanging on the wall and a bunch of statues of Korean people and hardwood benches to sit at and desks and a keyboard. And the whole hut was constructed out of Coke cans and primarily beer cans, Asahi and Cass and all the different Korean beers. I know Asahi is Japanese, but a bunch of beers. And it looked so cool. So I took a picture of it, and then I resolved to have a beer there one day. And I got to go in there by myself a couple days later and had some kimchi and a beer. And it was fun. And I was inside this bizarre creation this amazing creation. It was so cool. All right. And then my Busan trip and then that's everything I remember off the top of my head from my wild week in Busan, in beautiful Busan. And then I got to the airport. That girl dug her nose. I got on my airplane and I landed in China. And I've only been here a couple days. I will get back to you soon with what's been happening in China, in Beijing, seeing all my friends again, looking at this weird city I haven't been to for years that is different. Thank you for listening. You can talk to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com. I am Bit of a Rambler on Blue Sky and Lemmy. And I'll talk to you soon.